So I'd like to start us off this morning by sharing a humorous story about the Pope and a rabbi. So several centuries ago, the Pope decreed that all the Jews had to convert or leave Italy, be gone. There was a huge outcry from the Jewish community, so the Pope offered a deal. He would have a religious debate with the leader of the Jewish community, and if the Jews won, they could stay in Italy, and if the Pope won, well, they would have to leave. Well, the Jewish people met and picked an aged but very wise rabbi to represent them in the debate. However, as the rabbi spoke no Italian and the Pope spoke no Hebrew, they all agreed that it would be a silent debate. On the chosen day, the Pope and rabbi sat next to each other for a few minutes before the Pope raised his hand and showed 3 fingers. The rabbi looked back and raised 1 finger. Maybe it was this one. And next the Pope waved his finger around his head. After that, the rabbi pointed to the ground where he sat. The Pope then brought out a communion wafer and a chalice of wine. And the rabbi pulled out an apple. And with that, the Pope stood up and declared that he was beaten, stating that the rabbi was too clever and that the Jews could stay. Later, the cardinals met with the Pope asking what happened. The Pope said, well, first I held up 3 fingers to represent the Trinity. The rabbi responded by holding up 1 finger to remind me that there is still only one God common to both of our beliefs. Then I waved my finger to show him that God was all around us. And he responded by pointing to the ground to show that God was also right here. And so I pulled out the wine and wafer to show that God absolves us of all of our sins. And the rabbi then pulled out an apple to remind me of original sin. He had beaten me, and I could not continue. Well, meanwhile, the Jewish community gathered around the rabbi. What happened, they asked. Well, said the rabbi, first the Pope gestured that we had 3 days to get out of Italy. So I said to him, up yours. Then he told me that the whole country would be cleared of the Jews. And I said to him, Mr. Pope, we are staying right here. And then what? Asked the woman. Who knows? Said the rabbi. He took out his lunch, so I took out mine. Not only does that story really poke fun, uses humor to show the absurdity of religious elitism, of control, of whose religion is better than mine, the territory, but it also pokes fun at how we can so misperceive a given situation or a person's intentions. Has that ever happened to you? I know it's happened to me countless times. A humorous one is, this is going back now. I was, in my teens, and it was a snowy day, and, my father had cleared the steps, and we were all going out to dinner that night. So I went out of the house first, and there was ice on the steps, and I slid, and next thing you know, I was sitting, in this wet pool of melted ice on the landing. And so my father didn't see any of it, comes out and he says, Angela, the ground is wet. What are you doing sitting on the floor? And I'm like, oh my God. I don't know. I just decided like 2 steps were too much. And I decided to take a seat. I don't know. And then a very silly one is the other day when I was talking with Lynn, checking in about Dorothy. You know, she was telling me what the next steps were and where Dorothy may go in the rehab center. And so what I thought she said was, you know, at first they were going to put her next to where the exercise room, so it wasn't too far for her to go. She says, but, you know, I'm going to be staying with Mom, and, you know, there I would have to share the room. So, you know, they're going to put her by what I heard was the long-haired section of the rehab. And I'm saying to myself, what? You know, I started laughing, and she's like, what? And I'm like, I didn't know they had a long-haired section. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, the long-term care section of the rehab, right? We really can color things in. Not only do we miss the mark, but we can take a given situation based on what we are seeing and make it be the determining factor of us being happy or grateful or not, right? So if I came down here, okay, and I handed each one of you a $100 bill and maybe mailed it to all of you on Zoom, what would come up for you? I just walked over, should have stopped at the bank. Maybe I really could have reenacted it. What? How generous I am, right? Now, if after saying that, after giving out the money, and I said, guess what? The only money available to you for the next month is that $100, that all other sources of income or money would not be available to you, what would you be experiencing? Give it back. But would you suddenly still be feeling grateful? It might change, but you know, does it change the generosity of an act? No, but again, it just shows how our perception or misperception can really cloud what is going on. And so let us take a look at misperception. Misperception just is what it is to perceive falsely. And Gary Simmons, the author of The Eye of the Storm, pretty much says that when we are centered in our human personality, you know, all of those beliefs that we have been conditioned in, that all perception is misperception, okay? And we also know that it is one of the 4 winds of misperception is one of the 4 winds of conflict. And the antidote to misperception is principle. But before we dive into principle, I want to just make sure that we have a common understanding to remind us of those 4 winds of conflict and the 4 attributes of wholeness. So when we are experiencing the winds of conflict, be it separation, be it misperception, be it competition or defensiveness, we know that we are not centered, not placing our dominion in the direction of our good, that we are living from our personality selves, our conditioned selves. I just want to stop. When we say personality, conditioned self, ego, sometimes we have just a total negative view that it's this outside force or entity. But we need our personality self, our ego. Some of those beliefs that we've learned are useful to navigate our survival in this world, right? When we were young, we need to be conditioned to know that you don't touch the stove because you will burn yourself, right? We needed to know once we started to drive, we needed to learn the belief or knowing, and we can take a moment and we can say, what are we making this mean? Or I could take a deep breath and say, what am I making this mean? So in this moment, right? So when we are in experiencing separation, misperception, competition, and defensiveness, we know that we are centered in our human personality. And what I was saying, that there is not all bad in our human personality, right? When we are driving, we needed to learn that when, the arm at the railroad station was down, that it didn't mean we go around it, right? So there's a time and purpose. But when we are feeling our face get flush and we are feeling separated, and we're only thinking that my way or the highway, or we find ourselves needing to be right, we know that being centered in our personality is not for our good, right? So when we are experiencing separation, misperception, competition, defensiveness, we know it is also a call for healing. It is a call for us to return from placing our faith in what we are seeing and perceiving and to move into wholeness. It is a call to wholeness. And so this week we are going to be looking at the principle, the antidote of misperception, the aspect of wholeness is principle. And so as we look at principle, we are reminded first, what is perception as it is defined? Well, Charles Fillmore says that principle is the unwavering, absolute spiritual truth. Okay? And when we look to the Oxford Dictionary for that definition, it means that we are using our five senses to experience and to perceive, right? Thank God I chose to ask Lynn the question, or to choose again, because it didn't make sense, because my hearing sense was not making me perceive so accurately the other day. It also means it is the way that we interpret the world behind our world. And again, based on our beliefs. And so I'm going to ask, I don't know, I'm having a blank screen. I don't know what's going on over here, so I'm just going to continue. And Valencia Ray, a doctor, a psychiatrist, says basically that how we see, it is the story or the meaning we assign to a given situation or circumstance based upon our unique way of looking at life. And that unique way of looking at life is all, again, what I said, all of the beliefs that we have accumulated in our lifetime. The beliefs of our family, of our gender, society, culture, so on and so on. And when we are living from that belief system, our vision, our perception is skewed. It is limited, right? And so Valerie Ray uses the analogy of a cataract. You know how you have a cataract or the film over your eye? And she said, when we are living from the perception only of our personality self, it is like we are living with having a cataract on our soul. And she states this: it is like a cataract of the soul that blocks the light of our soul, who we really are, and it keeps us from witnessing our own intrinsic worth and beauty, and from experiencing or seeing the intrinsic worth and beauty of someone else. And so how do we remove that cataract of the soul? Is that we call up principle. And I already shared that Charles Fillmore defined principle as unchangeable spiritual truth, right? So the one that Gary Simmons highlights in The Eye of the Storm is looking at the principles of faith and of love. So When we know that principle, that God is principle, we know that God is the absolute, that there is, when we say that there is one power and one presence, we are saying, okay, not a deity in the sky, some dude, some figure, everybody can have their own beliefs, but it is a mystery that we surrender to, that it is an energy, an ever-evolving energetic source that has birthed all creation. So if God is all there is, and there is an abundant source, then I too must be what? Divine, of the substance of God. And so lots of times in any given situation, we can ask where we are placing our faith, right? So sometimes we say, and I've repeated this before, I just need some more faith. Well, what are we really saying when we say that? Well, we always have faith. If the principles are unchangeable, they're always working, right? Faith is one of our powers. So we always have faith, but from what place in consciousness are we using our faith? Faith is what we believe in with conviction, what we trust, what we have assurance in, okay? Do we have our assurance in limitation or lack, or that I was just diagnosed with something and the world says this? Or do we place our faith in other possibilities, right? In any given moment, can we affirm that the allness of God is present? That there is more than meets the eye in this given situation? And if I can know that the allness of God is right here, it is within me, and I can have dominion, I can choose again based on where I'm placing my faith, meaning, what am I believing in this moment? What am I going to energize with my thought? And when I think of faith in the sense of, do I believe that the allness, right? Because you do have to surrender and trust, right? You know, Martin Luther King said faith is taking the first step when you can't see the whole staircase. When we are practicing spiritual truths and principles in our lives, it requires us to step into the mystical, because our human mind can't conceive or trust what we can't see, what we can't taste, what we can't feel. But when we walk in faith in spiritual principle, we are asked to believe that there is divine substance, and the allness of God is right here. It is the essence of my being. And it's nice to say that in words, but when we're going in trying times, where are we placing our faith? Right? And so when I think that the allness of God is present right here and within me, I think of abundance, right? I think of abundance. So as we look at the slide on abundance, many of us think of abundance only as it relates to money and material substance. But if I think I live in a sea of infinite potential, wow, and that there are so many possibilities available to me, and that everything that exists in my human mind already exists in the infinite realm, and it is up to me to energize my consciousness, my desire, the aspect of love in the direction of that, and then surrender, and then end it with, and whatever's for my soul's highest good, because sometimes that desiring, intending is not coming, it might be from our personality. And so what I would like to share that supports this abundance of divine ideas and potential, and then connect it back to, how does this relate to misperception and conflict? So I'm going to share this quote shared in The Eye of the Storm by Gary Simmons, who did a lot of research in researching quantum physicists. At any given moment, infinite possibilities are present. Some go as far as to say that there are infinite universes coexisting. Mind-blowing, right? Some of you have heard of that before. The moment you act as if something is so, this is it. This is what I'm putting my conviction in. The moment you do that, the universe of infinite possibilities collapses into one inevitable happenstance. When you look at something and say, this is what it is, you are pouring your creative energy, your attention, and awareness into that specific perception. The moment your awareness locks onto one possibility, all the other universes collapses. While in any given situation, there may be many possibilities and innumerable paths, the instant you decree this is it, all others vanish. Right? Pretty powerful. So let's connect this back to misperception. I'm in the middle of a situation, I'm not seeing it the same way as someone else, and I'm having that urge to be right? Or to win, or to convince someone. Now, it may be something in fact that I know, but where does my intention go? Do I go to needing to be right, or do I say in this moment, you know what, there might be another way of seeing this? As soon as I even pose that question, I move myself back, right, to now wanting to be the observer. I wonder what I'm making this mean. And when you start to know what your stories and myths are, you'll see how much that shows up in any given situation, right? And so here we get to say, what am I making this mean? Are there any other possibilities? And then last week I said, you can say, tell me more, right? Tell me more. I want to know more. I want to move from being right to understanding in this moment. So now let us look at the principle of love, the power of love. It is our ability to harmonize and unify our consciousness, meaning our beliefs, our words, our emotions, and actions, to be in accord with the highest expression of our divinity in that given moment. So it is not, I love this, I like this. It is unifying and harmonizing myself. What are my words representing? How am I showing up in this moment? And I can choose again. And Carolyn Mace does a lot of work around looking at the love of power versus the power of love. And so I want to take a look. I want to click. My computer's not working, but I'll click me. Next slide. No, I'm kidding. So when we look at the love of power, we surely know that we are in third dimensional reality, our conditioned self. That power is the more you have, the status, your roles, needing to be right, winning at all costs, right? And that is when we are centered in our ego. And usually it's your concern in that moment about getting your own needs met, me. And when we are centered in the love of power, we are going to experience, maybe in that moment, you'll have this get a rush. I told him, I told her, kind of thing. But then eventually, you have this, it just adds to not only your experience of separation, but to the separation in the world, right? If we believe in what is one, what is in one is in the whole, what is in the whole is in the one, then we know whatever I am experiencing is also impacting and being fed out to the universe. It is disempowering. We leak our energy. We intensify our own suffering and the suffering of others. It is needing to be right, and in that love of power, we create dis-ease and it collapses all possibility. We are right in that one only. So now let us look at the power of love. And that is desire, the desire or intention. Also know that the aspect of the principle love or the power of love is our desire or intention. So here, instead of having our desire unify around being right and getting my way and being comfortable in the world, I use my desire here, my intention is that I use my words and action in this interaction to be changed, to be healed. And not only do I desire that for myself, I now see this as a gift, even if I am factually right about something, to now offer my compassion to somebody. And as soon as I surrender and knowing that there's limited possibilities, I allow the universe to meet me right where I am. But if I am stuck, I will not open myself up to the other possibilities. So not only is my desire about me, it is about us, it is about we, it is about the healing of the planet. This is the call of our times. This is the call of our times. That for us to evolve collectively and individually, we need to move from me to us to we. Okay? And when we are in that desire, centered in principle of love, this centered in the principle of faith, yes, knowing I am that powerful, you are that powerful. You have the power to influence one person. And that person can influence one person, and so on and so on. And when we are in that experience of the power of love, we experience communion and oneness. We are empowered. Others are empowered. We are energized. We not just talk about wholeness, but we experience it in our being. And instead of collapsing possibilities, we are now open to possibilities. And so, my friends, our desire, our intention, points the direction and how we will show up. In any given moment when you are in conflict and you are needing to be right and you feel that separation, you can say, well, in this moment, I desire instead of being right. Or going back to the old stories of how I would make it mean. You know, in spite of my uncomfortability, my legs shaking, my face being red, I'm going to breathe. And I'm going to desire to be just present. I don't need to say anything. I just need to have the desire to see more from a different perspective. The desire to be open for the universe to meet me with all of its wisdom, the wisdom of my soul, and to guide me in that moment. And so in closing, here is a principle checklist that you can refer to in a conflictual situation. And if you look at this and know it, right, this takes practice. It's not just using it the first time when you're in conflict. It's to know that in any moment, the allness of God, infinite potential, is present within me and all around me. I'll use like the Pope, what he was saying. You could just do this. I don't know what they'll make it mean. And you can say the mantra, peace, be still, and know I am God. I got all this going on in me, but peace, be still. I could say it to myself. And where's my desire right now? Do I desire to be healed by this interaction? Do I desire to be the presence of principle? Because we use God. We use principle. How will I use my faith principle? How will I use my love principle in this moment? How will I be God in action in this moment? And will I have the desire to be the power of love that uplifts not only me, but others and this world? So blessings, namaste, and I appreciate you all, and I appreciate technology even when it doesn't work. This is what I was seeing the whole time, but and see, I was open to possibilities. I had a blank screen. Woo woo. Yes. I know, but that's not what I was seeing. So I was just going along. I don't want to have my back doing the talk like this. There's always a lesson.